I'll explain now. Hey, Erev Tov, everybody. Welcome to all the visitors, everybody that's here. We're glad you made it. Not Muvan Me'elav these days. I just want to explain, because there's been a lot of questions and a bit of confusion in terms of the new protocol of Tehillim that we're going to be saying at the end of Shachar and Mincha every day, because we're essentially dealing with the same problem that every shul in the world is dealing with right now, which is, this is over. It's been over a year. You say extra Tehillim, you add in extra tefillot. There's a certain hitorut that people have for a day, for a week, for a month. Over a year, we're all aware of what's happening, but it's very, very difficult. The words get swallowed up, it becomes rote. We can't stop saying things because we're still at war, we've still got chayalim out there, we've still got hostages, we've still got psuim. So what do we do? So this is the balance that we're hopefully going to strike between the two, which is that starting tomorrow on weekdays, we are now going to say one perek Tehillim at the end of that Shachrit and Mincha. After Shachrit will be perek Kuf Kaf Aleph, after Mincha will be Kuf Lamed, one perek which we'll say responsively, pasuk by pasuk, chazan followed by the kahal. We will say one mishaberach, which is a shortened mishaberach, which includes everything, includes the chayalim, includes the shvuyim, includes the psuim. We're still davening as much for everybody in a shorter way, hopefully with more kavanah. And follow that, we'll say Acheinu out loud. The chazan will say it out loud. Everybody will say it together. Bezrat Hashem, shitkablu kol hatfilot. Okay, so we're going to talk about something fascinating that comes up at the end of V'zot HaBracha. V'zot HaBracha gets a bit of a rough deal because between Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, last year we didn't even read it. So we don't always talk about it so much. But if you look at the end of the Torah, the final psukim, this is when Moshe Rabbeinu dies, and the Torah is in a sense summarizing his legacy, you could say. And the final psukim of the Torah say, "L'chol ha'otot ha'muftim asher shlacho Hashem la'asot be'eretz Mitzrayim, leFaro, l'chol ha'avadav, l'chol ha'ratzor," going back to all the miracles and wonders which obviously Hashem did, but Moshe Rabbeinu as his shaliach led us through all of this. U'l'chol ha'yad ha'chazaka, u'l'chol ha'moah ha'gadol asher asa Moshe le'inei kol Yisrael. That's the end of the Torah. I'm going to ask, what is the greatness? What's the greatest thing that Moshe Rabbeinu did? He led us out of Egypt. He brought us the Torah through the years in the Midbar, brought us to the cusp of Eretz Yisrael. The end of Asher Asa Moshe le'inei kol Yisrael. What is that referring to? Says Rashi, right? Le'inei kol Yisrael shenasa'o libo lishboa luchot le'ineihem. The question here is, why does it say it's unusual? It says le'inei kol Yisrael. We don't find that language very often. In the eyes of all Israel. Could have said le'kol Yisrael. It says le'inei. As we'll see in a moment, that appears earlier on in the language, and that refers to when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai and he smashed the luchot. Right? He smashed the luchot in front of them in their eyes. And Hashem agreed with him. And that's the final Rashi on the Torah. Everybody remembers the first Rashi on the Torah. That's the final Rashi on the Torah. And this is how we end off. This is, the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he smashed the luchot. Seems like a bit of a downer. Seems like a bit of this is it. I mean, this is what we remember. This is the greatness. What about all the miracles? What about receiving the Torah? What about coming out of Egypt? What about everything? The fact that he smashed the luchot. What is so special? What is so great about smashing the luchot? The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu did it, that this is how the Torah leaves us. This is how, this is the hesped from Moshe Rabbeinu, that he smashed the luchot. So one answer that I heard, beautiful answer. There is a Gemara. Here's a number of places in Shas about Shimon HaAmsoni or Nehemiah HaAmsoni in different places. But the Gemara talks about Psachim. The Gemara talks about one of the Tanaim who would go and he darash kol etin Shabbat Torah. Everywhere in the Torah where there was the word et, right, he had a drasha about it. Right? He wrote a sefer. Said every time all the etin Shabbat Torah. He probably also asked for him like that today. But he went through in every single place that it says et. He learned there's a chiddush that comes to l'rabot, comes to include this, comes to include that, comes to teach us something. Every single place, except for one. There was one that he couldn't find. Right? Et Hashem Elokecha Tira. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva v'darash, until Rabbi Akiva came along and he made a drasha that it comes to Rabot Talmidei Chachamim. But the point is that before Rabbi Akiva came along and had that drasha, so Shimon HaAmsoni or Nehemiah HaAmsoni couldn't find a drasha. So what did he do? What would most people do in such a situation? Yeah, you'd write the book. Yeah, there's one that doesn't fit. Okay, so you make something up. Whatever. He said, it doesn't fit. I can't find any. I thought that there was a drasha to be made from every single place that it says et. There's one place where I can't find the drasha. So, okay, my whole thesis must have been wrong. Go back to the drawing board. And it says, just as he received a reward for being able to darshan, for all the work that he did, for being able to leave it behind, right? For having that absolute commitment to truth, having that mesirat nefesh in a sense. That okay, this was his entire life's work. This was his magnum opus, but he realized he was wrong. He made a mistake. So what do you do to have the honesty and to be able to give up and go back to admit that it was all, there's nothing to do. That was his greatness. So I heard such an explanation. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatness, he's gone up, he's gone to Har Sinai, he's received the luchot, he's come down. Right? If you think that when Moshe Rabbeinu sees the people and he smashes the luchot, that he does so in a fit of anger, a fit of rage, like somebody might do today, so you haven't understood anything. This was a very calm, calculated decision, right? Would Moshe Rabbeinu go just to, in a momentary lapse, go and just smash the luchot? You were given these luchot by Kadosh Baruch Hu himself, and you're going to go and smash them? Who do you think that was more painful to? You think that was more painful to the Jewish people? You think it was more painful to Moshe Rabbeinu? It was more painful to Moshe. But in a sense, it's a similarity maybe to that idea of schar la-drisha and schar la-prisha. That's one interpretation. But I want to share something a little bit deeper, something based on the Malbim. It says an amazing thing. If we go back to Parashat Eikev, where Moshe Rabbeinu was telling the whole story about what happened, right? And he says, so I was up on the mountain and I was there for 40 days. Natan Hashem alai shnei luchot havanim, luchot habrit. I received the luchot from Hashem himself. Vayomar Hashem alai kum reid maher mizeh. At that point, Hashem says to him, you got to go. You got to go down. Something's not going to plan. Right? Your nation, it's interesting. Hashem says to Moshe, who took him out, right? But he says they've gone and they have destroyed. They've strayed off the path. They've made for themselves idols. Stiff-necked people. Skip over these psukim. It's not so pleasant to read, but at this point, Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to go down. We know the end of the story. We've just had Yom Kippur, Salachti Kidvarecha. We know how it ends. But it's not so clear at that point. Hashem says to Moshe, I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to wipe them out. You can't do this. You're worshipping idols. It doesn't pass. I'll start Moshe. Destroy the Jewish people. I made a promise to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. I said, I'll carry on with Moshe. And so then he goes, Va'efin va'leid min ha'al, va'ha'al bo'er ba'esh. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I came down and I left the mountain is burning. Ushnei luchot habrit, al shtei yadai, I have the two luchot in my two hands. Va'ele v'nei chatatem la'Hashem Elokechem. And then I saw that you sinned to Hashem your God. Asitem lachem eger masecha. Now he already knows this. He already knows that they made an idol because Hashem has told him before he comes down. But he stresses the point that he saw it himself. You have strayed from the path that Hashem commanded you, as Hashem told me. I grabbed the two luchot, I threw them from my hands, and I broke them in front of your eyes. There's that word, le'inechem, le'inei kol Yisrael. That's the connection. So listen to the interpretation that the Malbim gives on this whole story. He says as follows. He says, says, when I came down from the mountain was still burning with fire, and I had the luchot. Why is that information important? He says, the fire did not go out, it was not extinguished. The luchot themselves still retained their original form. They still had the words of the Torah. It's not that they hadn't, they were still intact. In other words, says the Malbim, Hashem has just said he's going to destroy the Jewish people. Right? He's going to start again with Moshe. If that's the case, everything until this point is null and void to a certain extent. The luchot that I've just given you, Hashem is saying, are now meaningless, right? There's nothing, it's all over. And Moshe says, but I recognize the luchot were not meaningless. They were still intact. They still had their power, meaning he still intended to keep his part of the deal, so to speak. So to keep it with who? Moshe says, I understood that essentially what Hashem was saying is, you don't have to smash the luchot. You don't have to break them. We can still keep going. Keep going with who? Keep going with you, Moshe. But I'm going to destroy them. In other words, says Moshe Rabbeinu, I came down and I realized that Hashem's serious about this. He's serious that for you it's over. When with the luchot, it's still going to keep going. So what's the only way to save you? What's the only way that Moshe Rabbeinu can say, no, Hashem, I don't agree that you're going to carry on with me. These luchot that you've given me, I understand now that it's just for me. It's not going to work that way. So he continues, the Maariv, he says, now, when does he smash the luchot? Only when he comes down to the camp and he sees them. First, Moshe Rabbeinu was to judge them favorably. Maybe they didn't really do it. Maybe they thought I've died. They're not really worshipping idols. And when they see me come back, then straight away they'll forget about the egel and they'll come back to worshiping God. But he came down and he saw it. Even though Moshe came down and they saw he was alive. Once Moshe Rabbeinu saw it with his own eyes, so he understood, yes, there's no way, I can't judge them favorably anymore. They are doing what they're doing. And that means that Hashem is going to destroy them. And therefore, the only way that I can go and I can put myself in between and I can fulfill that, what Moshe ultimately said to Hashem, he said, he says, I'm going to smash these luchot. I'm going to sacrifice everything, sacrifice what I have, in order that Hashem has to start again. And then Hashem says, I agree with you. I saw what you did. In other words, what is the greatness? What is the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu just going along and smashing the luchot again? It's not a fit of rage. It's not even the fact that he is going and he's rebuking the people. It's that he understands that by smashing those luchot, by breaking what he has, by sacrificing everything that he has, that is the way of giving the Jewish people a lifeline. That is the way of saving them. In other words, he's putting himself on the line. He's sacrificing everything that he has, sacrificing the Torah itself, sacrificing everything he has and everything he is in order for the Jewish people, in order for them to be saved and to begin again. And that is ultimately his legacy. The connection in the story and the times we find ourselves in that right now is obvious. I'm not going to elaborate, time is short in any event, but that maybe is an idea to think about of Le'nei Kol Yisrael. If we get to the end of the Torah is stressing to us the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. We see this throughout his life, is that he was able to sacrifice himself and he was able to put his people first, and that is ultimately that is his legacy. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer, Zakadosh Baruch Hu Zakot Yisrael, v'chach b'alam Torah mitzvot, shneimar l'nechel v'siman tzedko, yagdil Torah